Hmm. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amazing Skill Modeler Sunday Hangout. My name is Jack, and I am your host extraordinaire for these. See, no more scratching. It's host extraordinaire. Only because I'm too lazy to put down the lower third there. Amazing Skill Modelers is a Google Plus and Facebook community of skill modelers reaching across all skill modeling genres and mediums and to encourage friendships from around the world. And today we hope you will find it to be an important source of information about the hobby, hear about something new, and see firsthand the skill modeling experience. And joining me today are the usual suspects to help me kill time in some discussion about today's subject, which will be real space. So stay tuned about what kind of models to build and some experiences too. We're going to just talk about real space today, and I got the two best guys to talk about it. So if you want to join us, a live chat is open. If you cannot join us live on camera and on voice, so bring your questions, comments. All are welcome today, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and make suggestions for maybe some future discussions that have something to do with scale modeling, because it was established before we came on the air that lava lamps is not scale modeling. So, so there you have it. So I'd like to say that real space is going to be. It is one of our, not going to be, one of our community builds for this Amazing Skill Modelers group, both on Facebook and Google Plus. So think about it and make a skill model of whether it be scratch or from a kit. And also, we also have the wooden build. That's going back to the basic roots of scale modeling and building a wood build. I have a World War II. I think it's a World War II. Yeah, it's a Hellcat airplane. So I'm going to be building that sometime during the year. And naval, Navy, nautical,
Marine, yeah.
marine, anything that floats on water. Yeah. Boats primarily, but you can do amphibious vehicles. Like we have these duck tours here in town because we've got three rivers that we take people on tours, and they
Duck
read.
boats, landing craft.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
kinds of things.
it's actually kind of cool. In fact, that would be actually an interesting build, is doing one of those duck boats. They rehabbed World War II amphibious vehicles
Yeah.
that ride on land like trucks, and then they just ride along with as boats in the water. So those are the community builds, and today we're going to talk about the real space, because a few weeks ago it was about the wood builds, and we've. So if you want to see more about that, just go back on the Sunday Hangouts. Maybe maybe that will be about 8 weeks, maybe 8 weeks now. I'm right on
Yeah.
that, Jim. I think we talked about that. We kind of
Oh,
squeezed
well,
in.
we sort of covered it over 2 weeks, so it's probably the first one was 8 weeks ago, and then we did another one the last time. So yeah, between 6 and 8,
Yeah, I mean, we did it in two
two
weeks
installments.
because we were talking about the types of wood, and then the other week we are talking about cutting tools
Yeah.
and techniques and stuff. And you pulled out, you again pulled out your power tools. So maybe we can stretch this out for two Sundays as well. Just depends on how well it goes tonight. And I'm going to start with myself, because I was telling you follow my lead, because it was just hard. By the time I explained it, I can just tell you what I'd like to talk about. My birth year is 63. Hi, Jay.
Hey, how goes?
That's a little loud, but hi,
All right,
Jay.
I'll turn it down.
Heard a crash there. Is that that's somebody falling over?
Fell in his chair instead of
How's
out. Yeah, it's better.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, no problem.
So my birth year is 63, and the first thing when it comes to real space, the first thing I remember is actually the Apollo moonshots, and that was the summer of '69. That would have put me at about the age 6.5, I think, if I know my math right, and if I remember the first lunar landing. And my parents were immigrants, and for a year and a half at that time, my grandfather, my mom's dad, came to visit for about a year and a half. and they did this moonshot thing, and I just remember his astonishment. I mean, here's a guy that was born in 1898. He's been to 2 world wars. He's seen the invention of the automobile, radio, and transatlantic boat journeys as an everyday thing for the most part. And here he's sitting in a couch looking at the TV, watching men walk on the moon. So you can imagine his astonishment. For me, I was a kid. It seemed like an everyday thing. I was told this is the first time, first time, but it was the everyday thing. And really, these kinds of experiences is what divides us as generations. Like the baby boomers, came into the Sputnik era. Whenever Sputnik was launched, everybody was climbing under their desk because the Russians were on outer space looking down on us. And then, of course, in '69, the Americans had made it to the moon and walked it for mankind, as Neil Armstrong said. But anyway, and then the space shuttle disaster, the Challenger exploding in I think it was '85 or '86, if I'm. And talking to people younger than me, that's one of the first things they remember when it comes to real space. So real space has really made boundaries between generations of what we remember and how we interact with things when it comes to our world and science and things of that thing. But the one thing that not only to me, it wasn't so much the moonshots that was really impressionable to me, because the moon is in our backyard. I was more interested in what's further out there. And I was a little older when this was launched, and I can't remember the stats on this, but I did look them up, and I do believe this was launched in the '80s. This is the Voyager unmanned spacecraft. So this is what I'm going to be building for mine, space build, real space build. And it's going to double. I'm going to build the Voyager from Star Trek set and put this thing in it. And then if I want to display it separately, I can pull it out and put it on its own stand and have it displayed by itself, maybe with a starry background. But this is what's impressed me about real space.
And the fact that it's still sending back information.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and to find other worlds, literally other worlds, how similar and how different they are from the world that we actually live in, and how science, the science of physics and rocketry and doing trajectories, all that was really on the Pioneer and the Voyager space missions, and now they can actually get a spacecraft in a like a 2-3 square meter hole in space, and they can actually send something from here, and actually 10 years down the road they can actually say, yep, that's where we plan to go, and that's where this thing went through. And like the New Horizons, think of it, it took 10 years for that spacecraft to get out to Pluto. Yeah. and just do a simple flyby, because it was going just too fast to slow down and enter orbit. And its speed, I think, was 5-6 times faster than these crafts were. So they weren't about to slow it down. They were just going to send it out of, into interstellar space. Talk about fascinating. So that's my impression about real space. And like I should have done some looking into when these were launched, what the discoveries. There are a lot of discoveries that the Voyagers had found, and that's what was. I was in high school. That's what it was. It was the early '80s. Now that I think about it, because Pioneer was in the late '70s. The Voyager mission started in the early '80s. I was just coming out of high school.
The nice thing about the Voyagers, they gave us a lot of original photographs of our planets as they flew by that we'd never really had before. We'd had some probes, and that's very localized stuff, but not to the extent that we got from the Voyager missions.
No, they were actually listening, smelling, and seeing these things, and that literally so, listening, because they've even done a recording of Jupiter's magnetic field and smelling these atmospheres that have a tendency to radiate out from the planets. And like Io, that's how they knew Io was made mostly of sulfur because they sniffed it, I guess. This is just amazing stuff to me, and to think that we're sending probes onto Mars and other planets, and also Huygens made it to one of the moons of Saturn and such. But this is where I'm at. It's not so much the manned missions that thoroughly impressed my grandfather, because he said, my mother said that whenever birds made of metal fly, it's the harbinger of bad things in the world. And that's what his mother said, that whenever birds made of metal fly, that's when they're going to be bringing terrible things to mankind. And I don't know, I think that was a very distrustful view of science, but this thing certainly sparks the imagination. But moving on, what were your impressions, your first impressions of real space there, Mr. Jim?
My first impressions, sometimes I feel like I was born in the middle of it. I was born in 52 and that, because I remember everything from Explorer 1 up. I remember watching it on TV. One of the space shots that always stuck in my mind because it was so publicized, I think, was the launch of the first telecommunications satellite, Telstar. And that was such a big thing when it went up and promoted as such. So, and then we started moving on into the experiments for the manned missions and that, and followed all the Mercury program and that up through. And, regular TV. Pardon?
So what is your the build that you're really into SpaceX? I sometimes get the impression you're more into that than maybe NASA.
Yeah, I am, because I am very heavy into SpaceX because they're breaking ground where NASA left behind. They're the ones doing the rocket science that NASA basically gave up. There are other players, but to me, they're more minor players in it as opposed to what SpaceX is doing. SpaceX is actually doing all the legwork. Some of the other companies are more or less running on the feet that SpaceX has given them. Whether it's Blue Horizon or that, even the Boeing, their SLS, which keeps getting put back from one thing for another all the time, is trying to live up to the ground that was breaking, even though it's only had one launch for of SpaceX's the H-1 Falcon Heavy. So that's why I'm so invested into following SpaceX, as well as into actually building their models of their craft.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the this will be flying this year sometime. This is the manned craft, so it will be getting some definite airtime this year.
That looks like something that would be shot out of a cannon.
Oh, this thing? Well, this
Yeah.
This is the trunk and the capsule. This was the setup used for the testing of the escape mechanism.
Okay.
So this whole mechanism, this was set, and then so they could blast the whole thing off for testing the escape mechanism. So this was the setup, copied from. Like I took the original models that I got from AMX and modified it and built as exactly as to what was mounted onto the launch platform for the test.
Hmm. Yeah, kind of like that. What was that one that they did that with the Mercury way back when?
Yeah.
Uh, I can't remember the name of the rocket that lifted it off, but it actually broke up while they were testing it. It took
Yeah,
off, and
that was what was it? Not a Regulus, but I'm trying to think. It's a small rocket. It's about
yeah,
half the size of the Redstone.
yeah, and
It
it
was half the size of
yeah
the Redstone.
it broke up, but that was
Yeah.
okay because it that caused the launch or the escape system to fire.
Yeah, they
And they
wanted
worked
to
fine, so
launch. It was all about getting it up to altitude and then firing the escape mechanism on the capsule. So,
yeah.
so that's really important. So that's the story on that one. And of course, I had to do one of the my landed version of the Falcon 9.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah, that's amazing. The technology that's needed to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, yeah. I mean, NASA. I don't think the usefulness of NASA is gone. It just hasn't figured out where it can be useful.
So you can blame government for that.
hmm
Well, of course.
They kept using it, even though its actual expenditures was like 0.2% of the total government budget, and they kept using it because it was a public entity, visibly as a sacrificial lamb to say that they're saving money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they always
one and a
continually
half
cut
penny
money.
from the dollar. Yes, and
Yeah,
that seems to be the sacrificial. But you know something though. But I didn't know this. I didn't know this. Of all the things that NASA has done, like the particularly Voyager, like the unmanned craft, and all the data and all the information.
yeah,
This is also inclusive of basically Earth orbit satellites that do weather tracking, that with certain spectral instruments they can see where underground water is and even minerals
yeah,
and all that information. I mean, and it's a lot of information, is free to the world. And
yeah,
if there's a third world country that wants to develop and exploit and develop its resources,
yes.
and they don't know what is in their own borders, they can certainly give
That
Washington a
information,
call.
and
And
also now with the invention now of what we call CubeSats,
uh
which are small satellites that are only about this big,
mhm.
but that allows anyone to be able to have a satellite to put into orbit for one thing or another. Fixed
Mhm.
format, the CubeSats. Even uh, university students are now launching CubeSats for their studies and that.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's put space into the hands of anyone basically now. You know, so you've got space access. You know, when you figure that I know there was one CubeSat that went up from a bunch of kids from a high school, and so they ran some experiments and that in orbit from a CubeSat. So it's to be able to put space directly in the hands at that level, I think is just fantastic. You know.
Oh, I think so too. I think so too. But I realize this whole thing about the data that anybody can access. It's free.
Yep.
This is not top secret stuff. This is not anything to do with Homeland Security or what am I trying to say? It's not top secret stuff. You can do what's necessary to obtain the information. It's
Yep.
not that difficult. If you have a couple of guys that are well educated, they can figure it out and do what needs done with that data and
Yep.
to exploit it. And it's available for
Well,
the world to use.
the
And I just
data's
think that
data's
just means
freely
anybody
available,
can use
and there's already also studies. There's studies going on. I mean, there was a couple of new findings were done a few months ago where people were studying data that was received back in the 60s, late 60s from satellites, but they're reinterpreting the data from what we now know now, and then reinterpreting the data and reapplying it and finding new things from the original data.
That's scary. That's so scary. Reinterpreting data from the 60s based on what has been learned. I'm sure they got all this data they didn't know what to do with, or how
they have reels and reels and reels and reels of data that they really don't know what it means, until somebody actually comes up and studies it and applies it. So,
well, I think though, whenever it comes to government and NASA and the European Space Administration or Agency and its Russian counterparts and the like, and the Japanese and the Chinese have gotten into the action too. Those governments have got into it. I think there is a usefulness for NASA. It's just Elon Musk is doing something very different. He's exploiting this information in a way that would benefit mankind in a different way.
He's heading more towards the commercial aspects of it.
Oh,
long-term commercial aspect, which we'll have to do.
Well,
not just the scientific, but the commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are at that point where the science will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And in fact, I even heard somewhere that if you go towards the commercial, the science
will follow. Yeah, the science comes along. Yeah.
Doing it purely for science is not entirely necessary. But I can't see Elon Musk taking a probe out to interstellar space and beam back a few pieces of data about it. Because I don't think his car is going to do that. I think his car is just gonna continue going on.
It's gonna orbit in and around the sun and back out and around Mars and continue until eventually it either falls into the sun or whatever.
Comes back and hits the Earth sometime.
I don't think it'll ever hit the Earth, not in the trajectory, but it could fall into the sun.
Well, the car could fall in my driveway. I'll be okay with that, provided it's intact.
I don't think it'd be able to arrange a soft landing somehow.
Yeah.
You, Randall, you're a big, and you're probably, I'm a bit of an astronomy. I'd like to, like the stuff with Voyager and all the data and all the pictures. I just fascinate over them. But you take it to a new level. You actually go outside and you take pictures and you share them. What were your first impression of real space, and how did that occur?
Actually, it came as a bit of a surprise to me. I was 7 years old when Apollo 8 went to the moon, and I definitely remember being surprised that this was being done for the first time, because I had seen clips of 2001 on the TV. I had seen clips of the news programs about the Gemini flights. I was too young to remember the Mercury flights, although I was only born like about May, June, July, about 3 months after Gagarin made his first flight. Yeah, I thought going to the moon was a done deal. Everybody was going to the moon. And then they were coming on the TV and saying that these guys were going to the moon for the first time. And I thought, what? So the initial surprise wore off, and I very quickly became a real space hound. At that time, the first time I was allowed to stay up late was the Apollo 11 landing. Mm-hmm. It was about 1 a.m. our time when it landed. When they landed, so I was awake long enough to hear the Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed bit. Mm-hmm. But being all of 8 years old and 8 years and 8 days old, I fell asleep long before one small step.
Yeah, well, they deliberately did that for American prime time. So.
Oh yeah, because it was like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening or something like that. Whenever they landed.
Yeah,
About 7 or 8. I remember it being the evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just gone down.
The only thing now I've since got from surprise, I've gone to disappointment in a way. All through the 70s, I was reading books and things like that about how we were going to be on Mars by 1980. Now I think I'll probably be in my 80s by the time we actually get men on Mars. Oh man,
Very good point.
Inclusively. So I would be pleasantly surprised if I'm still around by the time we actually see humans walking around on Mars.
Well, it's sort of like what I'm hearing from you that I think it was just a realization exactly how far Mars really is based on the current technology, even of that day, especially that day, which was non-existent. They thought they could develop it as quickly as they got it to the moon. But the whole thing about the moon was more of a geopolitical stunt, actually.
Yeah.
And it was to show the world that, yeah, the Russians are pretty damn good, but the Americans are better. I think it was just a pissing contest that the space race was about, and that's why the moon was reached so quickly. And certainly, you would know a lot. And I was actually astonished when I went to Air and Space Museum, went on tour, and they said, well, you know, when you look into a space capsule, there's really nothing in it. It was just a tin can with a couple of small instrument panels. It's almost like the difference between a commercial airliner and what Lindbergh had crossing the Atlantic.
Yeah.
As Tom Wolfe talked about in his book, The Right Stuff, Spam in the Can.
Yeah.
Ooh. That imagery.
You know, it's weird because the going to the moon is, you know, a lot of people think of it like you said, Jack, as that's just the backyard. You know, people don't really realize how far the moon is away from Earth.
No.
You know, I one time I was asking a bunch of students of mine if the Earth were the size of a basketball and the moon, that would make the moon about the size of a tennis ball. How far away is the moon from the Earth at that scale? And they were moving the tennis ball maybe 3, 5 feet, 8 feet out. Yeah. And I pointed out it's actually closer to 20 feet away. If you think about that, that's a hell of a distance to go when you're three guys inside a cramped
capsule. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally being in a lifeboat for a long time.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. It's absolutely it might as well be a casket for the most part.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to go, and
only one person can stand up at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the being then? Is that what you're saying?
everybody in school remembers having one of these sitting on the
Yeah.
So it's about, I don't know what,
basketball size
in diameter, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. The moon would be about the size of your fist.
Yeah.
Compared to that, right? And on the same scale as this, it would be 60 feet away.
That's
You know, so
that's incredible. Yeah, they were demonstrating, and there's a few YouTube channels that they were asking people to do it, and the person that got closest was maybe about 8 feet away. And here you're saying nearly 20 feet, and that's about right. It is amazing. What is it? It's 250,000 miles.
Yeah.
Put it that way, it makes more sense. So what you've built a few kits already for real space. The one that impressed me the most of your skills and the subject matter that you chose was really the the first spacewalk from a Gemini capsule.
Yeah, that was the little Dragon kit. Just find my share button here.
And now you're doing the Apollo Soyuz.
Yep. No. Oh shit! I had it.
That's you took it a show and you won an award for it, did you not?
Yeah, I got first place for the gold medal in the Irish IPMS competition in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I had a picture of it here in my applications window that I could share, but I can't find it now.
That should be like a desktop image on your computer.
Yeah.
Well, it was impressive, though. It was well displayed. Well done and well displayed.
Right, we'll share this one first of all. Okay, that's your
Voyager.
Voyager.
That's the Mercury capsule to the same scale.
Yeah.
Right, and here we go. Yeah.
Oh wow! These are all on the same scale.
Yep. Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and the shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
All to the 272 scale.
Yes, the shuttle isn't even that big, or wasn't that big at all.
Yeah. The astronauts, the Mercury astronauts, used to joke about the spacecraft. They said you don't climb into the Mercury craft as much as you just put it on.
You wear it, yeah.
You wear
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good as good a description as any I've heard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yep. Hang on. I should. Where am I? Oh, stop that. I found.
Well, there's no encouraging you. You'll just do it. You've done a lot of these builds. Wow, look at that.
There's my. I used a photo etch from just a generic RAF set or something like that. Yep. And sort of because they were made of metal, I used that to just make it as if they were floating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
While Dave, no. Ed White, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The spacewalk, yeah. Mm-hmm.
First spacewalk, yeah, from America. First American spacewalk.
Yeah. And I think, was it Jim McDivitt was with him in that flight? I can't remember.
I think it was McDivitt, yeah.
This is the little 72 scale Gemini that Dragon do.
I know he had a hell of a time getting back into the spacecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, it was Leonov. Really.
Leonov had it worse. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Ed White was actually enjoying himself too much. He actually had to be ordered to get back inside.
Yeah. He was enjoying the view too much. Yeah.
And to be honest, I can't blame him. I thought I had a lot more pictures ready to share here. But, what the heck? We'll stick with it.
Yeah, Jim and I were kind of like going briefly across the internet, looking at kids, and I got the impression they're generally more expensive than like a car kit. Like my Voyager was nearly $40, and when you look at the sprues, are like anemic. There's not much to the build, hardly at all. It's going to be delicate work, basically. I'm probably going to have to pull out my floor tile and build it using my floor tile. Yeah, I mean,
you're right.
the shuttles are expensive too. I went to eBay. A 72 scale is now going over $100 just for a Revel.
Yeah, and that's there's one you had a choice of two back in the day. You had the monogram one.
Yeah.
They actually offered not only just the orbiter, but they also did the full stack.
Yeah.
The solid rocket boosters and external tank. But I don't know if Revell have reissued that kit at any time. I know they did their own 72 scale.
They ought to. They ought to.
Yeah.
I know the 72 scale stack, like you said, is a big kit, but it's actually, I think, worthwhile having as far as a build goes, because that would be a nice. I don't know. It's just something bigger just makes more sense when it comes to something like that.
Aerofix makes a big one.
Oh yeah,
they do a 72 scale. No, sorry, 144 scale. Full stack.
Well, that's only this big.
Yeah. So. Yeah, this is just one of the Airfix solid rocket boosters. Where did I put it? Yeah, this is the orbiter. So, I have the external tank somewhere, but it's just out of reach at the minute. Some of these days I'm going to get around to finishing this. I started it, when did I start it? About January last year. It was part of the...
the Hasegawa kit is 1/200 scale, and it's going for about $25.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a way to get around that.
Hasegawa kit's a nice little kit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, while you're looking that up, I just want to bring up the live chat. George said he was not here yesterday. He's got a good doctor's excuse because he was out buying a motorcycle to restore, and he's working on it as we're speaking about all of this stuff. So, hi, George. We did miss you.
Yeah, hi, George.
Certainly, it's nice to have seen you here. So, there we go. Got the Redstone Mercury all the way up to the space shuttle. Look at the differences. So these are all the same scale, no doubt.
All 200 scale. This was the old AMT Man in Space set.
Oh, really?
They did the
Redstone.
Mercury Redstone, Mercury
Atlas, Titan.
Gemini Titan, Saturn 1B, and Saturn 5. And this is the Hasegawa shuttle. So that's all to date. The U.S. manned space flight.
Mm-hmm.
And the kits, these old kits here, they're not too bad. They need a bit of TLC, like anything from the early 70s or late 60s. The capsules are a wee bit in the crude side, but there's a company called Tango Papa that do the decals for these kits. And they did the decals for the roll patterns on, pretty much all of them, but I just used mask and paint for the roll patterns on the Saturns. I've used the Tango Papa decals for everything else.
I found a company called realspace.com that makes all kinds of the rockets, but they're resin models.
Mm-hmm.
But they have all the different ones out there.
They're based in Florida, aren't they?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're out of.
Is that Real Space site?
Real Space Models.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I've got it here. I can bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up.
No. The wrong way here.
Here it is. This is the site. Real Space Models, Resin Spacecraft and Models.
Mm-hmm. They look like decent.
They look decent,
kits.
yeah.
Yeah, they also do quite a bit of.
They do conversion kits too.
Aftermarket and conversion.
Like here's an early one. You know, like this was Saturn 1, Block 2 for $100.
Mm-hmm. There's also a kind of Czech or Eastern European somewhere, Czech or Polish company that does real space modeling or models or accessories.
Yeah, here's something that's really hard to find. Skylab.
Yeah. George brought that up, Skylab, and what scale is that? Does it say?
1/44.
Mm-hmm.
1/44. That's a pretty small one. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to scratch build one of those, but I don't have. I can't. I don't know. I guess I haven't made too much of an effort to find the like some kind of blueprints or something to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Airfix or Airfix rather reissued their Saturn V kit with the Skylab, but it's in the launch configuration. You don't get all the solar panels and the truss work stuff inside.
Here's a rare piece of history. The proposed dinosaur project in a model.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So you can go that expensive, but that high quality.
Yeah.
And of course, even like the kits from Revell, Dragon, they're going for a lot. They can all reissue or retool their kits, and then I'm sure they'll be able to sell them a lot better. In fact, I think, though, Jay has a particular affection for the one kit for the space shuttle. He didn't even build it as such. He made a Star Trek ship about that.
Well, I used the 172nd space shuttle. I used the main fuel tank and the two, what do you call them? The two
SRBs?
SRBs, yeah, to build the Daedalus, the Daedalus craft from Star Trek. The only time that ship has ever actually shown up on screen was a model that Greg Jean made, and he used a 1/144th scale space shuttle to get the engines and the main and the secondary hull. So I figured, if that's what they used in the original, then that's what I'm going to use. Dang it! But I went bigger.
That was the one that sat in Cisco's office, and
it was just it was never shown as a spacecraft flying around. It was a model kit. It was a desk kit sitting there, but that's what he used to build it. That's what Greg Jean used to build it, was a space shuttle kit. And well, when it comes to building models for props for TV, you're usually told we need it yesterday. So they do anything and everything they can, all the scrounging possible to get something built that'll, look good on screen. And if that one's going to be sitting in the background, then it doesn't have to be super finished. That was actually that design was actually one of the proposed designs for the Enterprise when the show was first being created. And so they thought that would be a nice little tribute to have that style ship in the background. So
It was one of Matt Jeffries.
Yeah, it was one of Matt Jeffries. One of Matt Jeffries' several thousand designs.
So, what were your first impressions of real space, and are you going to participate and build something?
Yeah, I'm building the Gemini. I think it's a Revell Gemini capsule.
Okay.
But I've got an aftermarket kit that has just a ton of accurate parts and things like that for it. So I'm going to be building that up. With my experience with real space, I was a major space fan from the beginning. I have watched every launch, every manned launch that the U.S. has done, up through the space shuttle. I can't always watch them when they're being launched from Russia, but every manned spacecraft flight from every U.S. manned spacecraft flight I saw when it was originally on. I've always been an incredibly big fan of the space program, and I can tell you though, sometimes your interests fluctuate, especially when you're a kid. And while I was a major fan of the space program, I got really pissed off when they kept interrupting Batman for reports about Gemini 8. Gemini 8 was having some problems, and they were landing off course, kind of. I think they were 200 miles off where they were supposed to land.
Yeah.
And they kept interrupting Batman for reports about the Gemini program and how the poor guys might be lost. And I love the space program, but damn it, it was a Catwoman episode. So.
Yeah, and they didn't resume the episode, from where they left off or where they interrupted. They just
they just picked up. They didn't resume it from where they cut off. They just picked up from where it would be if you'd have been watching it. So, that was me. But yeah, I've been a fan of the space program all my life. I love what Elon Musk is doing. I don't think a lot of what he wants to do is practical or will happen. I think the BFR is a mistake. I don't really believe it's going to get going to any real degree, other than maybe building one and launching it once. But there's a reason that we don't do 30-minute flights to anywhere in the world using rockets that are big enough to where if there's a problem and they blow up, it's much like a small nuclear device. Yeah. Near a city. There's reasons why we don't do that. and it's fun to think big. And I think that SpaceX is doing an incredible job with what they've done. But some of the stuff I think is just pipe dream, We'll see. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would be interesting to see them develop a space elevator. That would
space elevator would be incredible if we could find the material to hold it up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You need the cables would need to be. Well, they haven't figured out the kind of polymers or metals that would need to be something like that. But
they're talking about graphene. I think
I was going to say that something like graphene, along with carbon fiber and such, could do it, but right now graphene is unbelievably expensive to make, and they only seem to be able to make it in small amounts.
Yeah.
But that's been true about everything. When nylon was first developed, they didn't make a ton of it; they made a teaspoon of it, and
Well, George says it could have been worse. It could have been a Batgirl episode.
Now that would have really pissed me off. Yeah. I mean, you got to remember when Batman was on back in the 60s, I hit puberty early because of Batman. So.
And Carwin is also joining us on the chat. It's good to see Carwin is well enough to be even watching us.
Yeah.
He's been feeling pretty lousy, and he says he thought SpaceX was the distance between you and your last relationship.
That's a very good point, and mine isn't long enough. So,
well,
my ex-wife lives a block and a half away from me. Okay.
Well, you know something. Maybe I think Jim might be able to corroborate this. I'm sure that when Elon Musk got started, I'm sure he didn't think of the Falcon 9 as being ultimately what he's going to use as a sawhorse workbench type thing to do these things. I think he had a bigger is a big imagination. This guy.
Oh yeah.
But I think though you need a big imagination in order to see if engineering can match it. But engineering is a practical side. Well, yeah, you can dream about the BFR, but engineering-wise, it just wouldn't make any sense to do.
But it's just an engineering problem.
It is an engineering problem.
Yeah.
After all, it's what Apple does. They say, "Well, here's a phone. This is what we want it to look like. I'll make a phone inside of it."
Yeah.
We're looking at a preliminary launch of BFR in 18 months.
George says, "Was that a Jane Fonda soft porn?" Okay.
Barbarella.
Barbarella, yes.
Barbarella. Yeah.
Yeah, they should do an Barbarella movie now with her in it. Wouldn't that be cool? No, it wouldn't. No.
He's 100.
But yeah, I mean, it poses the engineering problem, but I think it comes down to the point: is it a practical problem to solve? Probably not. Probably not. But I'm sure something will be born out of it. There he is. Now he's sharing something. Look at that.
I think that's more important. Is what can be born out of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they should be making model kits as soon as they launch. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes.
The only guy I know that makes model kits right after they're launched or before they're launched is my paper model design guru, Alfonso from AMX Models. You pretty well get a launch. You probably get a model during the launch. You'll have one ready.
Yeah,
That's
George,
cool.
no. Nobody wants to see her again. Annoy Jane. Anyway, yeah, you've built a few kits now of real space, haven't you, Randall?
Yeah, I've done a few. Yeah, this is again. Most of them are Dragon because they were the most readily available at the time. It's also the only company that does the full command and service module. The entire Apollo spacecraft, essentially, from the lunar module to the service module, in one scale and comes in one kit. There's the old Revell kits, but they're like 1/96 scale, and they're based on the old boilerplate models that they launched into space to see if the things would actually work.
Yeah.
There's with the with the Dragon kits, especially where the lunar module is concerned, there are one or two minor niggly faults with them about the proportions of the descent stage and what have you. But once you build it up, you're never going to notice unless you took a ruler to it. Biggest fun with this was actually doing the legs. It actually arrived at the moon with the legs folded, and they didn't deploy them until just before they detached or undocked from the command module.
What would have happened if one of those legs didn't deploy?
They would have aborted the mission.
Wouldn't that suck?
That would
You
have
got
sucked.
all that way and you can't go.
That would have sucked, and the Apollo 12 crew would have been the first to land on the moon.
Right. You can go all that way and can't even knock on the door. So
All
Yeah,
they would have been similar to the Apollo 10 mission.
Yeah.
oh gee.
Fly around a bit and then dock again and then go back home.
Or Apollo 13. They gotta live in that thing.
Mm.
3 guys. That was designed for 2.
Yep.
Yeah. Lots of history, lots of things to think about. Particularly if you're over, you don't even have to be over a certain age, and you could be of any age. And the youngster among us is Wayne, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So Wayne, will there ever be tanks in real space?
Don't think so.
Well, stranger things have happened.
No, I tried to keep an eye on what's been going on. I remember when the Mir space station was due to re-enter the atmosphere. I stayed up to watch that over the internet, and then we get some strange anomalies here, like the meteors and stuff coming in through over the sea and stuff like that, in this part of the country. But that's about it. Space, it's just you watch it on the news. They launched this rocket, or this rocket's blown up, and sometimes it's a bit funny, and sometimes it's not.
What's your first memory of real space?
That's the space shuttle when my uncle went to the Space Kennedy, this Kennedy Space Center, and he went did the tour with his family and got a load of pictures for me.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, he went at the same time when a load of Japanese families were there, so he was part-time photographer. I did see something on the internet. I don't know if you can see that. That is a 5p coin.
I'm not seeing it. Is anybody else?
Nope.
No.
It's
You're frozen.
oh
Mm.
oh dear. I don't know if I got to reset or something. Is my camera frozen?
No, I'm not seeing anything now.
Just
There
we are.
here you are.
Okay. So say I don't know if anybody can see that. That's the size of that's a 5p coin.
Mhm.
That moving through space can crack a foot of ballistic glass on the space station.
Mm.
Actually, put a piece of paint that's that size, traveling that fast, cracked a 4-layered piece of glass
Mhm.
on the space station. So, thinking the speed's in there.
Mm. The only thing about it, the space station's charging along at 17,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's
So
what I mean.
if
That's
you've
just
got anything coming in the opposite direction at that altitude, it's going to be the same speed. So
yeah. And
even
they don't have reflective shields either.
no, unfortunately, not yet.
Well, even a grain of sand can do it too. Something the size of a grain of sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been looking at real space kits. I found Tamiya has done released a 100 scale kit of the space shuttle.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw this at Telford, so that may be what I'm gonna do. It's got a nice, it's very detailed. It's got a nice detailed payload bay.
And will they have the decal on the robotic arm that says Canada?
I don't know. It's
The old issue that I had from I think 1980 didn't have the Canada decal Or
Deco on it.
the arm, unfortunately.
Yeah, the markings are for Discovery, Atlantis, or Endeavour.
Oh, all the ones that survived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, you can't build a Challenger because it would be in pieces, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Well, then it would be easy for you to build, Zach. Just throw
There
it
you
against
go.
the wall and say it's the Challenger.
I've already built a Challenger.
What was the other one that burned up in re-entry?
Columbia.
Columbia.
That was the first one that launched too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do have another build. It's the nautical build, so I'm going to do my egg type for Lexington aircraft carrier.
Egg ship, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Is that the L. Exington?
Yeah.
Well, I have a bit more knowledge about ships because the first ship I went on was HMS Ark Royal in about 93, 94.
Oh, cool.
My cousin was coming home and got a pass to go on to see her. So that's a bit more I know about. But also liked that video I put up the other week about how to prevent SJWs taking over your hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only put it up as a warning, that's all. Because I've seen it in some other groups. The group moderator says it's okay, and then somebody else will get it reported.
Oh dear.
Yeah. It's happened. I heard about something on Facebook because I'm on these Panzer groups, follow groups, and because some of the German tanks did have the big massive swastika flag on for aircraft recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody says they've had it removed by Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
with Facebook, all you have to do is report someone or some image that you find offensive, and they'll pull it immediately and then try to figure out if it really was offensive or not. Maybe it's weird. I've had friends who've posted very innocent things that have gotten them pulled off and gotten them, reported because somebody was offended by it.
Well, like Ricky Gervais says, just because you're offended doesn't make you right.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I love Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, well, yeah. I started watching the congressional testimony of Zuckerberg, and
he looks like Data.
Yeah, doesn't he? There's actually memes of him looking like Data.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm gonna do one of them as a not real space.
One Gundam, yeah.
Yeah.
Another Gundam, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Space shuttle sounds like a good idea.
I may put tank tracks on the space shuttle.
Well, the crawler transporter did have tracks. It was a tracked vehicle.
Yeah.
The what?
I was pricing wood kits.
Recently,
and there's one that I'd really like to do. It's a style of shipbuilding that I think is cool because I built several wooden ships many years ago, and they look incredible. But the kind I'm talking about are the cutaways where it looks like someone is, like this is the ship.
A slice out of the deck.
Somebody has sliced it right through the middle here, so you have all the decks and everything.
Yeah.
Going all the way up to the sails, and
yeah.
I think those are incredible. But they're about like $300. So
no, you don't have to. If you look at Ages of Sail, I think they got one there, and it's not that much. They got a couple there, and they're not that expensive.
I'll check it out because it's something I've been interested in for a while. Is getting back into the wood kits because God knows I've been doing a lot of work with wood lately.
Yeah, well, look at that site, Ages of Sail.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. I enjoy working with wood. I enjoy working with making the old style ships and things like that. And I wish I'd held on to them. I had one of the original Enterprise.
Yeah.
One of the original Enterprises, the famous one, the 18 something. And I built it and it looked beautiful, and then I sold it, and that was a mistake. But
yeah,
that would take care of wood building and naval building at the same time.
Yeah. Something, if you want to look at it, it's scale that you can do in real space. I mean, this is extreme. But this is a 1/12 paper model.
Holy.
You can download the kit of a Apollo spacecraft.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Paper. Holy crap, I'm a cracker.
Yeah. Everything's there.
Even
It's even lit. The light, the cabin lights all can be lit.
no,
as
all
well
of
as-
the guards over the
all the guards over all the switch. All the switches are there. I know the guy who designed this kit, and he took everything he got tons of pictures from NASA, and he got all the instruments replicated.
It'd be fun doing that just from plastic card and stuff like that, but doing it from paper.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm kind of happy about because I want the Gemini I'm building. I want a light, but there's not a lot of lighting in it.
No.
Really, the cabin lighting is about the only lighting in the Gemini. There were, I think maybe a couple of lighted things on the panel,
Yeah.
but not much. I mean, it was all. This
thing had, like, the Apollo had two lights, one on either side of the console, and there was two lights between the chairs.
And I know there was in the Gemini there's one light between the chairs that shines forward, and I think that may be it. I don't remember.
Well, I think there was an overhead light in the center console.
I think you very well might be right. I've got some really nice blueprints and stuff that I've got to check, but it's this I'm looking forward to getting this Gemini going because I don't know why, but the Gemini was always my favorite.
It was a fun craft. I loved Gemini. Yeah.
Especially with the modifications to it that they had talked about.
They did so much. They did so much with it. I mean, they were going to put a booster service module on it so it could go further.
Yeah,
there was even a plan. There was even a proposal to send it to orbit around the moon.
Yeah. If it had the booster, it could have done it.
Yeah.
Because it was a very versatile craft. They even came up with a version of it that could land by paraglider.
Yeah, had the runners on the bottom.
It had the skis on it to be able to land and all that. But
there was even plans at one stage to send one to land on the moon.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was a Gemini capsule perched on top of a lunar descent module.
Yeah.
the
Pretty
descent,
much, yeah.
descent stage of a lunar module, and the plan was to get the guy there, resupply him until the first Apollo spacecraft arrived, and he could go back to it.
Yeah, that way they in fact that was made that plan was the basis of a movie called Countdown. I think it's called Countdown, and you can find it on internet. What is it? The Internet Archive. You can find it on there. It's for free. I think it's on YouTube as well, and that's exactly what they used was a Gemini capsule on top of a lunar module, landing module, and that was the plan. Get him to the moon, and they had already sent a supply mission that had a supply vehicle on the moon for him to go to, but he didn't have a way to get back. He had to wait for a ride. So
yeah, I think it was like a stopgap thing until.
Well, yeah, it was just in case the Russians were getting ahead of us too quickly. We wanted to be the first to land a man on the moon. That was it, That darn Kennedy said, land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. If he'd have left off the return him safely to Earth, we could have landed on the moon in like 1966.
Yeah.
But getting him back, doggone it, that whole getting him back safely, that
Kennedy had to go through that in, didn't he?
Yeah, leave it to Kennedy to throw in a caveat like that.
Back in the chat, George said that no, it wasn't George. It was Carwin that said Armstrong was a brilliant nutcase. They would have landed without the legs, probably deployed on the LEM. It's probably the case too. The guy was a daring genius, and of course George. If you had the money, you'd love to have that huge Dragon Saturn V. You know what? If you want to see a bunch of faces on a Hangout, green with envy. Take a look at the across the pond from yesterday. Lou held up the box. I think you open a box and it's already in there, already built. The box is so huge. And also, let's see. George can also see Jay doing a ship in a bottle. Hey, that's not such a bad idea. Not like like maybe a real space in a bottle, but
you could do it.
Yeah,
but George, part of the challenge of that is emptying the bottle before you actually.
I'm good at emptying bottles.
We're not talking about Diet Pepsi. We're talking about the other type of soft drinks.
I was trained by the best, man. I mean,
and then build a model on the bottom. That's once you're done with it. Okay, very good. And Carwin says once threw a couple of figures into a puddle and said it was a crew of the Marie Celeste.
Oh,
Mary Celeste. Oh,
the Mary Celeste is a very famous ghost ship type thing. They found it. They found it afloat, completely abandoned.
Yeah,
and I mean, it was weird because
food was on the table.
Food was still on the table, and most of the people's belongings were still in their cabins, but there was nobody on board, and they never found out 100% for sure what happened. They've got some pretty good ideas, but
even the ship itself was rigged for fair weather, if I remember.
Yeah.
No hint of any storm damage or anything like that.
Yeah, so
it's warm in here.
We're under a winter weather, winter storm warning.
Yeah, I had the windows open over the past 48 hours, and it's been really nice. I've had a couple of nights of really good sleep, I'll tell you. Anyway, that is what we're talking about is real space, and I think we did a pretty good job. We killed about an hour and 15 minutes. You gotta, and when it comes to models, do you guys have anything to share as far as your latest build?
I do.
Just, the Soyuz part of the Apollo Soyuz test project I've been working on. I showed this off yesterday.
Cool.
Added some detail to the back of the solar panels, and there was quite a discussion yesterday as to how to replicate the solar panel part on this side. Because I'm looking to replicate this kind of thing here.
Right.
Which is, whatever I do, even if I just leave it black, it's still going to be way better than what they supply in the kit. Which is this stuff here.
Ooh.
Disco paper, yeah.
Disco paper.
So, anything's going to be an improvement in that. Also, sort of roughly assembled the Apollo part of it. I've been masking off the radiator panels.
Wow.
And it's kind of surprising the difference in size between these two vehicles.
Yeah.
That carried 3 men.
Yeah.
On the Apollo Soyuz test project, I think there was just 2 guys. I think there was Leonard and somebody else. But that was the capsule part there. That's what I'm holding it by is the orbital module. But in more recent Soyuz flights, you've got squeezed 3 guys in here. Side by side. And like the Apollo seemed cramped. But I think compared to the Soyuz, I think Apollo's like wide open spaces inside.
Yeah, pretty much. They said there was a recent Soyuz launch, and they were going to be spending, I think, 2 days in orbit in the Soyuz before getting to the space station, and they were literally touching elbows for 2 days. You could not move without physically touching another person, even in 0G, which does help.
Still could have got pretty cramped up.
In 0G, you've got, I mean, on Earth, we've got 2 dimensions that we can easily move around in, forward and sideways. But when you're in 0G, you've also got up.
Yeah.
So you can float out from your chair and have a little bit of open space. But yeah, that Soyuz is a very cramped capsule spacecraft.
Right.
The only saving grace of the Soyuz is that they have the orbital module, which you can get into. So you can at least have a little bit of privacy.
Yeah, because you got the separate orbital and descent modules on that.
Yep, there's.
I'm sharing a picture of my trip to DC. Kind of a bad perspective. This is the mock-up of the mission. Yeah, well, I couldn't get a head on with it, but there is definitely a size difference between the 2 spacecraft. A huge enough difference.
You could say that probably because the Apollo was designed to go to the moon, but oddly enough, so was the Soyuz.
Yeah.
The Soyuz was intended to be one half of the Soviet lunar landing mission. The Soyuz spacecraft would have been docked to the lunar lander, which oddly enough wouldn't have been much bigger than the adapter. There would have been about that size, only with legs. And one guy stayed in the Soyuz, and one guy went down to land on the moon. That rocket sitting beside the Saturn V there was the M1, and that was the rocket the Russians intended to use to get to the moon. Unfortunately, it had a nasty habit of blowing up.
Yeah.
Either on the pad or shortly after it left the pad.
It had how many, like 30 engines on the bottom?
Yeah.
Something like that. And all it would take is one going wrong, and it could cause a major problem. It's great looking ship, though. I mean, I think it's a beautiful spacecraft.
Yeah. The Russians do make really good looking launchers, don't they?
Yeah, they look more science fiction-y, I think, than what the Americans came up with.
Mhm.
I don't know why.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Yeah, the Soviets could do that. Yeah, I guess.
The R7 booster, I mean, like it looks really good on the pad and when it's being launched.
Mm-hmm.
They have what they call the Korylov cross when the four booster section, the four strap-on boosters part.
Yeah,
And it looks really spectacular.
that's cool.
The Skylab. Yeah, that's the model kit I want right there.
That thing has so much room in it.
That was the Air and Space Museum, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
They actually have the not a mock-up of Skylab. They actually have the backup Skylab that would have been launched if the first one had been completely destroyed.
Yes, you can actually walk into it.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
It's a pretty large cavernous space. It's actually quite good.
There's video of the guys running around the outside, running around it on the inside. And it's so much more space than the International Space Station. The International Space Station is significantly bigger.
Mm.
But I mean just open space. There was a lot more open space in the Skylab.
Mm-hmm.
It's cloaked. It wasn't there. There's a Enterprise.
Cool.
And the model that I liked the best was the 100 scale. These are aircraft carrier aircraft, and they had a 100 scale CVN Enterprise. It's a fantastic model. Well, this is not real space, but I just thought I'd share it since I was already here. An amazing model.
Didn't the Enterprise have the nickname Starship? Didn't it, or something?
I don't know. I've never talked to anybody that served on the CVN. So anyway, well, that plays in with our nautical, our Navy nautical, Marine. What was the word you used, Jim?
Amphibious. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that the community builds. Jeez, it's Sunday night. I'm already getting into work mode. That's crazy. You see, but this is work mode. You see how I perform at the job. It's really good seeing you, Jay. How have you been feeling?
I'm doing a lot better.
We're not really seeing you, but you're here.
I'm. Yeah, I've been. It's what's been happening is I've been just busy on Sunday nights, and I specifically wanted to set this one aside and not make any plans so that I could, be on because I haven't been on in a while. So I wanted to show you something I'm proud of. I needed a low angle joiner plane with woodworking to get edges, real nice and smooth and such.
Mm-hmm.
But you look online or you look at the hardware store or at like Woodcraft or something, and they want $250, $300 for one.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I would make my own, and I made this yesterday.
Oh, nice.
This is, and I even forged the blade. Everything on this I made, and it's at a 30-degree angle, and bevel down at a 30-degree angle. So it cuts at 30 degrees, which is significantly shallower than most. So it makes it a low angle, and I've been playing with it and getting it tuned in. And I tell you, I can get shavings off of wood that you can see through. It's that nice. It's great, and I've been having fun, and that's working with wood. So, one down.
That's a model of a plane. Okay, got it.
Yeah, this is a 1-to-1 scale model of a
plane.
Of a plane. So
of a plane. Not aircraft, but it is a plane.
Yes.
Felt the same way.
But yeah, I've been busy, and I'm trying to schedule things so that every other Sunday night will be open.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, I have this mental image now of you being so proud of this plane that you've made that you're running around the house looking for bits of wood to shave, furniture.
Have you been spying on me? I actually use it to shave down. We have the front door was sticking, so I shaved down the very top of it a little bit to get it to stop sticking. So yeah, and yeah, I actually have been looking for things to shave with it. You know.
Yeah, you're a little bit of beard here that I can get shaved down. So yeah, all right. It doesn't work. Well, okay.
Maybe not that. You know.
You know what? I just can't contain myself because I'm just really excited about what's been going on here. I finally got a base to work. Jim kind of hung out with me in part. I don't want to wait 2 weeks to show this off, so I'm going to show it off now. It's what I've been talking about since July. My 72 scale Millennium Falcon. It's not quite real space, but we kind of got that subject already. This is where I'm at so far on this. Look at that, Jay.
Very nice. How big is that thing? At 1/72nd.
It's a 72 scale.
Which makes it physically how big?
The round part probably about a foot.
Okay. Well, so it's taking up maybe about 1.5 feet of space, so therefore it is real space. It's just a different kind of space.
Yeah, it's occupying real space. Okay, got it. And then, of course, I was bragging about the blaring white engine thrusters.
That looks gorgeous.
I over and made 4 generations of them, of that, and finally the 4th one worked. The 3 times not the charm on this one; it was the 4th one. And so there's a stand. It's just a 12-inch by 20-inch frame that's covered with. That's topped with, I should say, masonite board, and I wanted it to be originally plexiglass and be able to backlight it. But figuring at 1.2 amps, that's what the model is running on. I just think the LEDs would have been just way too much. I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Jim too. I says, what can happen is that I can use fiber optic and still do it, and still put holes in it, and use fiber optic to make a starry field below it. I mean, that way I'll be just using maybe at most maybe 10 millimeter LEDs to do that. I think that should work. So this is, as you can tell, the radar dish needs to be put in, the decals need to be applied, and same with the gun turrets need to be put in there too, because the stand is offset. It's not in the center. It's offset. There's my cockpit.
Wow.
And it's a little overexposed, but certainly the next picture.
You got lens flares. That's cool.
This is the burners that I've been laboring over. I got the camera close enough so the camera adjusted for the bright lights. So if you were looking at this in person, this is very much what you would see, kind of a field of blue in the burners in the middle of all that. So those are all resin parts, and I tried to maybe sloppily. Well, then again, it's a piece of junk. I don't think he cleaned his burners, so that's where I'm at with this, and I'm seeing the end is near to getting this done and out of my hair once and for all. I'm over it. I am so over this build.
Yeah.
So I'll probably share it again in 2 weeks, see where we are with that, because I have a weekend to do some stuff. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in real space. Yes, George. Hi, Bob. Bob stopped by. Hi, guys. Just home from work. Hi. Nice to see you got home from work there, Bob. And sit back, relax, crack a cold one, and have a relax. So yeah, I'd like to thank George and Carwin and even Ken had showed up in the live chats. And they had their discussion was actually a lot longer, a lot more involved than it was yesterday. So I think it's your fault, George, because yesterday there were people there. They were just wanting to say anything to each other. It was like going to a singles bar, and everybody was the wallflower, you know. So anyway, like to thank Jim for stopping by also. Give us his impressions, his knowledge, and of course, he's our go-to man when it comes to SpaceX. And no, Carwin, is not the difference between you and your last relationship. And yep, he did do a wood build. He built the plane. Thanks, Jay, for stopping by too. And don't make yourself such a stranger. We need to know that you're alive.
I'm alive. I checked. I'm alive. I was tested.
He's alive! It's alive! And Randall, hey, keep building those real space models. And also, Wayne, build a space model, real space model.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it doesn't. I know real space models don't have any treads on them or any turrets, but yeah, maybe you can do your version of one. Anyway, this is your host extraordinaire for the Amazing Skill Modeler Hangouts. And in 2 weeks, it will be across the pond on Saturday. That would be, oh gosh, this will be, oh my gosh, it'll be Saturday the 28th. This is Saturday, no. This Saturday the 28th.
28th, yeah.
Yeah, this was a three week, three hangout month, April.
Yeah.
So the 28th of April would be your across the pond. That's a Saturday. And of course, on the 29th, Sunday, that's 2 weeks from today. And happy modeling, everyone. And see you then.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.